from Jeannie. Welcome to Inside Story. Today I'm joined by composer, arranger, songwriter, and Jeannie ambassador John Altman. It's wonderful to meet you. Hello.
My pleasure. Hi, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Yes, not too bad, thanks.
Amazing. So, John, if we start at the very beginning, when did you first get into music and how did that come about?
Well, I first got into music when I was born. And how it came about was all my mother's brothers were well-known band leaders and arrangers and musicians. One of her brothers was the conductor at the time at the London Palladium, which then was the peak of variety, or whatever you want to call it, show business. So my early years were spent in the company of people like Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole, Bob Hope, Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, Danny Kaye, you name them, I was around them. So I got into music really, really young, and it stayed with me forever. I started playing our 78 RPM records at home on the gramophone and loved everything I heard. So that was it. I was hooked.
Yeah, and they say that your only sort of formal music training was piano lessons as a child. So would you say that you sort of had a sort of just natural ability when it comes to music?
Well, I guess I did. I mean, it seems to be a family trait because all my family were musical or involved in music. Mm-hmm. And I always hate to say it came easily because nothing comes easily, but I definitely had a gift and an ear. And then you make use of it. I stopped piano lessons at the age of 11, but I started composing little pieces at 7. Mm-hmm. I took up saxophone at 12 and joined local bands. And by 18, when I was ready to go to university, I was also making records. So I obviously had some ability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just looking at the sort of roster of artists that you've worked with sort of speaks for itself, from George Michael to Amy Winehouse, Bjork, Van Morrison. In fact, anyone that's anyone, and that is just to name a few. So how do these collaborations come about? Have you ever had to kind of ask for it, or do they just sort of fall into your lap, if you will?
Well, they, believe it or not, they've all contacted me. All the people you mentioned have been contacted me. Or been, I don't like to say mentored by me, but Amy, when I met her when she was 16, she used to sit in with our band and I would suggest things for her to listen to and collaborations and things like that. So it's been interesting. I mean, I've never had to search for a gig. It's always come to me. So I guess I'm lucky in that respect.
And is there an artist that you haven't had the chance to work with yet, but you'd like to?
Well, the one I've somehow managed to miss working with, although I know him pretty well, is Stevie Wonder, whose birthday is today, May the 13th. So happy
birthday, Stevie Wonder. I'm sure he's watching this.
Yes, I think so. No, I mean, I've been friendly with his whole band. I've been in situations with him for basically since the 70s, but we've never had the chance to work together, which I would love to have done. But
yeah,
everyone who I really idolized or admired or whatever, I've managed to work with. So it's pretty good.
And so you've won Emmys, you've won BAFTAs, you've won every music award going. So what would you say is your greatest musical achievement so far?
Oh gosh, that's difficult because things that hit the popular nerve are obviously great things to have done. Like my arrangement of Always Look on the Bright Side of Life has lived on and on and on. 42, 43 years since we did it, and people are still listening to it and singing it at funerals and. Opening the Olympic Games with it and doing all kinds of stuff. I hear it in the street. I hear people whistling it in queues, passport queues, and heaven only. I'm tempted to sort of say, excuse me, I'm responsible for that. I didn't write I wrote the arrangement, but I didn't write it. But of things I've actually written that have lapsed into consciousness, you know, I don't know. I mean, the tank chasing Goldeneye, even commercial Sheila's Wheels that was big some years ago. You know, everybody in the country was driving them mad. So job done. You know.
It must be nice to have sort of your work kind of follow you around like that, like years later, as you've mentioned. That must be really strange, but good, I guess.
Well, the interesting thing is, all the people I've worked with have stayed current, which is not necessarily the case. You know, you could have done like a 1990 dance record that people would and faded away completely. But even going back to some of the people I played with when I was a kid, like Nick Drake and Muddy Waters and Peter Green, there's people, and Hendrix, you know, they still resonate today with people's, you know, if they're not old enough to remember those people or hearing them, they have got to them as they've grown up. And
absolutely,
I had 14-year-olds ask me what it was like working with the, you know, with the Beatles and things like that. Amazing.
And a lot of people will most likely know you for being a film score composer on the likes of like Titanic and GoldenEye, as you've mentioned, but you're also a virtuoso jazz musician. So would you say that jazz is your greatest love?
Yeah, I mean, I still love playing, you know, and I love listening to jazz and playing jazz, but I also love listening to sort of funky music and playing it. And I love listening to classical music and conducting it, or rock and roll. And you know, with Little Richard, you know, that's a big one for me. I idolized him. And I wrote for Roy Orbison and Del Shannon. So, you know, the people of my youth who I got into, I've managed to sort of catch up with in a way and join up with. So that's been good. So I love playing jazz. I suppose if somebody pinned me down and said, right, you know, you're not getting up till you tell me your first love, it's got to be jazz, I guess.
So finally, when it comes to music, you're probably the most highly acclaimed man to speak on the matter. So what would you say that the likes of Genie can do for newcomers when it comes to sort of putting their work before an online audience and getting their stuff out there?
I think it's great. You know, if they're going to be recompensed for it and, you know, earn money from it and be heard and have a platform where their music just doesn't get swallowed up in the mass of music that's out there. I was very lucky in my younger days in my career to have mentors like Don Black, the lyricist, and Elmer Bernstein, the film composer, and even when I joined Hot Chocolate and Van Morrison, both Errol Brown and Van were encouraging me to write, you know, so I have tried to pass that on over the years to a new lot of people like Amy, as I mentioned, Jessie J, who I mentored for a while, Cynthia Erivo, who's now a big name in Hollywood. So I've always felt that it's great to pass on, you know, that aspect of one's knowledge, not necessarily to tell them what to do and how to do it, but just to steer people in the right direction. So if the site is steering people in the right direction, then it's doing exactly what it should be doing. A great job.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you for your time today. And as I said, it was a privilege to meet you.
Pleasure. My pleasure.